Welcome back to another episode with Fight Pass with Mitch, presented by Notorious Pulls Radio. And for this week's episode, we're going to be breaking down UFC Fight Night, Josh Emmett versus Ilia Topuria. But before we get into it, if you are new to our show, please leave a like, follow, and subscribe on all our social media platforms. So let's get into it. Josh Emmett, the number 5th ranked UFC featherweight, is going against the outstanding bullet train Ilia Topuria, who is currently on a 5-fight win streak. As you know, Josh Emmett is a veteran in the featherweight division, coming off a loss to the current featherweight interim champion, Yair Rodriguez, where he lost by triangle choke. As you know, Josh Emmett trains out of Sacramento, California at Team Alpha Male and is a powerhouse puncher and a very grounded wrestler. His opponent, Topuria, the El Matador, is a Georgian fighter fighting out of Spain who has dismantled every person that the UFC has placed in front of him. His last opponent, Bryce Mitchell, who had a lot of steam and hype behind him, was absolutely humbled by Topuria. Whether it came to the boxing or even to the ground game, there was absolutely no weakness in the way Topuria was able to break down each of his opponents that he's faced. He obviously had a phenomenal knockout against Jai Herbert, where he literally took this man's soul. He dismantled Ryan Hall, who thought that he can get on the ground and probably ankle pick Topuria. Was not able to happen. Great win over Damon Jackson. And obviously his UFC debut, he put on a stellar performance against Yusuf Zalal. This fight, as you know, will be taking place in Jacksonville, Florida, at the VyStar Veterans Memorial Arena on June 24th. This will be live on ABC, so you guys do not want to miss this main event. How do I see this fight going? What are my predictions? I'm going to have to rock with the Georgian powerhouse, Topuria. I don't see anyone in the featherweight division other than Alexander Volkanovski fighting him for the title in the next coming matches. Obviously, Topuria is trying to call his shot. He's trying to climb up the ladder big time. He's the number 9th ranked featherweight, and he's going against Emmett, who's the 5th. Obviously, him cracking into the top 5, he's easily 1 to 2 fights away from a title shot opportunity. I do believe Topuria will get his hand raised in this 5-round match come Saturday, and I believe that this is only the beginning of his success story, and he will be Georgia's first featherweight champion in the UFC. And most likely, if he wants to, he can easily go to 155 and become Georgia's double champ at 145 and 155. But let's not keep him focused. I want him to have a great fight against Josh Emmett, and I think the world is his going forward. So we're going to be rocking with Topuria that night, and you don't want to miss this main event. The co-main event is obviously the flyweights. We got our ladies fighting. We have Amanda Ribas versus Macy Barber. I really love this fight. These women are both go-getters, both great strikers. They're both coming off beautiful wins in their last performances. Ribas had a great performance against Viviane Araújo. And obviously, Macy Barber is currently on a 4-fight win streak. This is a great co-main event for the flyweights. The women are going to really come out and show their talents. I do believe, in my opinion, that Macy Barber is going to have the slight edge. I like a lot of the momentum, and I like how much she believes in her game and how much she has grown since entering the UFC. She obviously picked up some losses during the way, but I believe that has sharpened her and humbled her and helped her perfect her craft going forward. so she can keep climbing the rankings in her division. I do believe Macy Barber will be victorious that night against Amanda Ribas in a flyweight match, which will be the co-main event. The next match that I want to discuss is a match with the featherweights, and we have David Onama versus Gabriel Santos. Onama, 10-2, is coming off a loss against Nate Landwehr. Gabriel Santos has obviously had his UFC debut against Leron Murphy, which he came up to unanimous decision loss. Between these two fighters, I'm going to have to rock with Onama. I believe experience will play a big role come Saturday night. I do believe that Santos is not getting any easy fights when it comes to the division, because a guy like Leron Murphy is easily a guy who's hovering around the top 15, and same goes for David Onama. I do believe that Santos is an extremely talented fighter, but I just believe that these UFC veterans just have the experience and the grit, and it'll be very, very hard for him to pull off an upset against Onama Saturday night. So for these reasons, I'm going to rock with Onama when it comes between these two featherweights. I believe styles make fights, and experience will pave the way for victory come Saturday night. The next match that I want to introduce, which could have easily been a fight night in my opinion, and that's Brendan Allen versus Bruno Silva. As you know, these are two big middleweights. Brendan Allen is a stud. He's on a 4-fight winning streak, and out of his 4 fights, 3 of the finishes have been rear naked choke. Bruno Silva is also coming off a win against Brad Tavares. He had 2 losses prior to that. One was to the former middleweight champ Alex Pereira, but Bruno Silva is a very game opponent. He's a great striker. He has a good ground game, and this man looks for the finish each and every time. He leaves it all out on the line. I do believe that Brendan Allen has a great chance against Silva. I believe that I know he wants to avenge one of his losses, and that was to Chris Curtis. And I know Curtis just came off a loss. So the way I see this prediction, Brendan Allen picks up another beautiful win against Bruno Silva, and I think they're going to set him up with Chris Curtis. But even if he loses to Bruno Silva, I still think Chris Curtis makes sense for Brendan Allen coming to his next fight. Win or lose, I think Brendan Allen's next fight will be Chris Curtis. And that's how I see the matchmakers going about this for this middleweight. My personal opinion, I'm going to rock with Brendan Allen. I like how crafty he is. I love his fight IQ. And I love how he's been finishing all his opponents on the ground with a rear naked choke. I'm going to take him for a rear naked choke on Saturday night. So definitely stay tuned between these two. And one of the main fights that's going to be really exciting is the main event prelim. And that's against Neil Magny versus Phil Rowe. A little funny thing, these guys kind of look alike. And they're both very similar body types, very lanky welterweights, both towering over 6'1", 6'2", very long arms, crafty ground game. I really like this matchup. Obviously, Neil Magny is a ranked fighter. He's 11th ranked welterweight in the UFC. Phil Rowe is currently not ranked. Magny just came off a tough loss against Gilbert Burns. He had a great win against Daniel Rodriguez, and he obviously lost to the undefeated Shavkat Rakhmonov, who is doing big things in the welterweight division. His opponent, Phil Rowe, a little fun fact, Phil Rowe was actually born in Brooklyn, New York, but he currently resides in Orlando, Florida, training at a Fusion XL. He's on a 3-fight win streak himself, all finishes by TKO, has great wins over Nico Price, Jason Witt, and Orion Kosuke. But fighting a veteran like Magny is absolutely different. He's getting a huge opportunity to fight a ranked fighter in his division. Do I think Phil Rowe has a chance? Absolutely. Would I go against Magny? Absolutely not, because Magny is fighting much higher level competition and he's going toe to toe with them. This will be Phil Rowe's toughest fight to date and probably toughest opponent that he's ever faced in his career. And this will be a test for him. I'm going to have to obviously rock with my guy Neil Magny when it comes to Saturday night against Phil Rowe. I just believe his experience and the level of competition that he's faced is far beyond what Phil Rowe can show him in the octagon that night. Guys, remember, if you enjoy our show, you enjoy supporting us at Notorious Pulls Radio, remember, we have some of the best merchandise in town. We're doing some of the biggest collabs coming up, so stay tuned. We have a lot of stuff going on. I can't wait to see you soon. Enjoy Saturday night, and this is your host, Fight Pass with Mitch.